Shlomo Katz, originally they put out the 2 volumes in English, and then this got translated, and because the Israeli crowd wanted it also. Okay, don't let it die, 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 don't let it die, let it die, don't You want me to turn on the fan for you? Try go, huh?
Anyone want the fan?
Very comfortable here.
Okay. So we're going to start on page 27, Bishvil Bereishit. So you all know that the first word of the Torah, take a guess. What is it?
So,
The first word of the Torah.
no.
No?
Bereishit.
Bereishit. Okay, Bereishit. What is it? What does it mean? In the beginning, right?
Maybe.
So there's a question that apparently the whole Tikkun Zohar has like 70 lessons on this question. And the question is, why does the Torah say Bereishit? It should just say God created heaven and earth. And if anybody would want to know when, they'd call Robin and they'd say, Robin, when did God do it? And she would say, in the beginning. Right?
Who's Robin?
The mayor of Teaneck.
Oh, you're Robin.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
The honorable.
Sorry.
How would you know?
Sorry. I never looked at you.
Where did you live?
Not now.
Upper West
Okay.
Side.
So why does the Torah need to tell you Bereishit? That's the question. It's a good question. You ever think of it? For years, I didn't think of it either until I heard the question. Did you ever think of it? No. Did you ever think of it?
What else would it say?
Saying nothing. We'll just say God created heaven and earth. Why does it have to say in the beginning? What do you mean in the beginning?
Beginning of creation.
Yeah.
It's
So,
sort of
and if it would
repeating
just say God created heaven and earth, and your grandchild would ask you, Zaidi, when did God do this? You would say at the beginning, right?
But
Once upon a time.
why do you have to give 2 answers when one would do?
No, it's not that you're giving 2 answers. It's just saying the Torah doesn't have any extra words. That's the point.
Right. So why is it
There isn't any. There are no extra words in the Torah. There isn't an extra letter. There isn't an extra chuk-chuk. Okay. So everything in the Torah has to teach us something. So why does the Torah say Bereishit? So Rashi asks the question. Everybody's asking the question. So here he's going to be giving us a different answer. Habet Yaakov b'chelik harishon omer dvarim amukim ba'od. The Beis Yaakov was the grandson of the Ishbitzer. At the beginning of his commentary on Bereishit, he's saying some very deep things. Bereishit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. HaKadosh Baruch Hu omer lanu. So God is telling us that Shehu bara tchila et hashamayim v'et haaretz. That He created heaven. First, He created heaven and earth. Aval beinenu, but between us, in other words, you don't need God to tell you that. מתי היה אמור העולם להיברא אם לא בהתחלה?
Right.
When else would the world have been created if not at the beginning?
Oh,
נקרא במדרש. Let's see what it says in the Medrash. In Bereishit Rabbah, המילה בראשית אין פירושה רק בהתחלה. The word Bereishit doesn't mean just at the beginning, אלא בשביל ראשית, for the sake of ראשית, for the purpose of ראשית. And Rashi brings this medrash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, now Rashi says, Bereishit, Bet Reishit, that God created the world for two things that are called Reishit. One is the Jewish people, and the other is the Torah. Okay? That's in the Rashi and Chumash. Here he's saying a different pshat.
Is it from Rashi?
This is from the Medrash, a different Medrash. He says, אלא בשביל ראשית, הקדוש ברוך הוא ברא את העולם בשביל מי שמבינים את סודן של ההתחלות. God created the world for the sake of those who understand the secret of beginnings. אנשים שיודעים רק את הסוד של האחרית, people who only know the secret of the end, בעיניהם העולם הזה הוא בזבוז זמן. In their eyes, this whole world is a waste of time. Think for a minute. He just said something very, very deep. Right? If you take a book, a novel, or whatever it is, something good, and all you want to know is
what's the ending?
What's the ending, right? That means everything until then,
You missed the journey.
everything until then was a waste of time, right?
Right.
So Bereishit, God created the world for the people who understand the secret of the beginning. So what does that mean? המדרש ממשיך ומסביר מהו הדבר שנקרא התחלה. So the Medrash explains what is it that is called the beginning or beginning. Reishit, Yisrael נקראים Reishit. The Jews are called Reishis. בית המקדש נקרא ראשית. אברהם אבינו נקרא ראשית. Right? The Jewish people are called ראשית, the beginning. The בית המקדש is ראשית. אברהם אבינו is ראשית. אתם יודעים למה? כי העולם נקרא ראשית. Because the world is called ראשית, beginning. ולמה העולם נקרא ראשית? Why is the world called beginning? So תארו לעצמכם חס ושלום. So imagine, for example, חס ושלום, אדם שנמצא על סף ייאוש. A person who's on the edge of despair. He's about to give up. מה הוא עושה? What does he do? יוצא לטייל קצת ביער. He goes out for a walk in the forest. הוא יוצא לעיר מפני שזה מזכיר לו את העולם כפי שברא אותו השם. Why does he go? ולמה העולם נקרא ראשית? Why is the world called beginning? So תארו לעצמכם חס ושלום. So imagine, for example, חס ושלום, אדם שנמצא על סף ייאוש. A person who's on the edge of despair. He's about to give up. מה הוא עושה? What does he do? יוצא לטייל קצת ביער. He goes out for a walk in the forest. הוא יוצא לעיר מפני שזה מזכיר לו את העולם כפי שברא אותו השם. Why does he go to the forest? Because it reminds him of the world the way God created it. מה הוא מרגיש? So what does he feel when he's walking in the forest? הוא מרגיש שאפשר לשוב ולהתחיל מן ההתחלה. He feels it's possible to go back and start again. כי הקדוש ברוך הוא ברא את העולם מלא בהתחלות. Because God created the world full of new starts, new beginnings. לכן אדם זה מרגיש ככה, that's why the person feels this way. נניח שאני עצוב מאוד. Let's say I'm very sad. אני עובד עצות, I don't know what to do. ואז אני פותח את החלון, and I open the window, לנשום קצת אוויר צח, to breathe some fresh air. האוויר נותן לי כוח להתחיל מבראשית. The air gives me energy to start again. In other words, Bereishit, bara Elokim, means God put the beginning into the creation. Okay? God created beginnings.
That's not the translation.
It's not a translation.
Could be.
It's a pshat. It's a perush. It's not a translation. Okay?
That's how the Jews created from the Shoah. They created a new world.
That's
a
the whole.
life
That's
in
the whole
Eretz
secret.
Yisrael.
That's the
I'm
whole
saying,
secret.
read this pasuk instead of
I
saying
am-
in the beginning God created. Beginnings God created.
I understand, but it's not pshuta shel mikra. You understand? You got to separate between what's perush pashut,
Yeah.
literal translation. You understand? The literal translation, Bereshit bara Elokim, is in the beginning God created. That's the literal meaning of it. When you go into Remez and Drush and Sod, that's a different. It's fine, but it don't. But you can't say that Remez is pshat. You understand? Pshat is pshat. Remez is Remez. Drush is Drush, and Sod is Sod. It's important to keep those separate. So the that means that God put the beginning into the creation, right? In other words, when you go for a walk in the forest and you feel refreshed, so then why do you feel refreshed? The forest was there before. Why? Because you like trees, or because of this, because of that? No, because there's an energy of beginning again. There's a pasuk in Tehillim. Hashem, David HaMelech says, "La'olam Hashem dvorcha nitzav b'shamayim." Your words of Hashem, your words of creation are forever present in the world, in the heavens. That means to say, right? How did God create the world? B'asara mamarot. The Mishnah says that God created the world with 10 utterances. Okay. How do we know that, Robin?
With 10 utterances, how do we know that?
Yeah.
Because the Medrash said that.
I don't know.
No,
He's starting up with me today. Huh?
no, I just learned it yesterday.
But how does the Medrash know?
Kacha there.
Kacha, okay. Yeah.
They count. The Yomer Hashem Yi, or God said there'll be light.
So, yeah.
That's one.
No.
And you count it up, but there's only 9.
Okay, so it says 9 times. It says God said, "Let there be." Right? What's the 10th one?
Pamayim kitov.
No. That's we're not talking about. But we're talking about Vayomer Elokim.
Oh.
Vayomer Elokim. The 10th one is Bereishit itself. Okay,
Oh.
but that's so now. So God created the world by speaking it. He spoke it into existence.
Seret HaLuchot?
Aseret
Hadibrot?
no, Asara Mamarot.
Oh.
Asara Mamarot. It's a Mishnah. It's not a Medrash. It's a Mishnah. And Pirkei Avos. Now, did God speak the world into existence, and ever since then it just exists? So Dr. Corson believed that. They said God created the world, and then he left. He has more important things to do. But what we believe, what the belief of the Torah is that Lo'olam Hashem dvorcha nitzav b'shamayim, your words of creation are forever present in heaven. And if Hashem, now that means to say that Hashem is right now saying Yehi O. Hashem is right now saying that there should be a heaven. Right now he's saying that this flower should be in existence. Okay? If Hashem would stop speaking the words of creation, everything would disappear, vanish. There wouldn't even be any dust for anybody to sweep up.
Where do we learn this from?
From the pasuk Lo'olam Hashem dvorcha nitzav b'shamayim.
Just written there?
In
Sure.
Tehillim Kuf Yutes. Okay? So there's a whole, there's a sefer called Sefer Yetziva. You heard of it? It's one of the first Kabbalah Sforim. It discusses all that. And in the second book of the Tanya, Shar Yichud B'Emunah discusses it also at length. And basically, what does that mean? That means that, you see, what is speech? Speech is information, right?
Communication.
It's information. It's communication, and then when you have something going from a word and then it manifests, right? So it's so it's the speech that causes it, the divine speech that causes it to manifest. Verstehst?
Mhm.
Now, let's take a simple example. What is H2O?
Water.
Water, right? Is water water and then somebody named it H2O? Or is water because it's H2O? Okay?
Water is because it's H2O.
Water is because it's H2O, okay?
Right.
Now, what I'm trying to illustrate right now is just now what happens if we change the H2O to H2O2?
It's
Not water.
It's
And what is it?
something else.
Liquid water.
Dry ice.
Hydrogen peroxide,
Hydrogen peroxide.
right? Okay, now all you changed is one little bit of information, right? So, in other words, if you want to understand how could 22 letters be responsible for the entire creation, right? So so this was just a little example of just move the position of a letter, or take NaCl and make it ClNa, or something like that. Take the position of something, put it into a different position. It changes the whole Geschäft, right? The principal I used to work for, she had a quote on the desk, I think from T.S. Eliot. Said nothing is as sharp as a comma and a period that are properly placed.
Properly or improperly?
Properly placed.
Properly placed, right.
A comma in the right place.
That's true.
So, chupchik. You don't
Right.
believe me? Put a comma into your computer
Right.
program where
In
it
the
doesn't
wrong
belong.
place, right.
Goodbye charities won't even tell you, anything, right? So little chupchik is garnished, right? So it's amazing. Like people can, and it's just a little tiny bit of information. You know how much information is in this computer? An enormous amount, right? Put a comma in the wrong place, it doesn't go, right? That's the power of just showing the power. So, your words of creation are forever present, and that's why we're here right now, because we're here because Hashem is right now creating us. Yotzer Or, God is creating light right now. God is creating darkness right now, and that's why we're here. Now, today is the year side of Reb Levi Yisroel B'Dishuk. So he explains like this. We can talk about this. Yotzer Or, instead of saying Yetzar, or that he's creating the light right now, instead of he created it, right? But the emes, Moshe, Zug the emes. Which do you see more real? That God created it, or that God is creating it?
God created it.
That God created it, you see. Zug the emes. To be able to experience the creation as it's happening, you have to be on the level of ayin. What does ayin mean?
I
Not with an I. Not with an I, not with the letter ayin, with an aleph. With an aleph, what does it mean?
Nothingness.
Nothing.
No thingness.
Gur nish.
No thingness.
Ayin is nothingness, right? So long as you perceive yourself as a yesh, as a something, then you cannot say, I see God creating the light right now. You cannot experience it that way. Okay? But the more you come to be ayin, okay, the more you come to be ayin, then you can actually experience. But once you start speaking about it, then you're no longer ayin, right?
You lose it.
And you lose it. Understand? It's then okay, so then what's the point of even talking about this if it's something so beyond us, right? That's what she was asking. I know. So I'll give you an example. Not a perfect example, but a good example. You ever walk on Broadway past some of the homeless people?
Yes.
How did you have to walk up to them to smell them?
No, you can
No,
still-
some of them are Kanainohara, right? 30 feet away, you already know he's there, right? I saw Reb Shlomo hugging these people with no less hesitation than he would hug you or me or anybody else. With no less hesitation whatsoever. I saw him I walked with him once. By the time we walked one block, he had no money left. By the time we got through the second block, I had no money left because he took it all away from me to give it away. Now, what gives you the ability to do that? Right? What gives you the ability to actually hug every person? And it's not like he didn't have a sense of smell. He had a good sense of smell. But what gives you the ability to go beyond that? Right? That is the aspect. Well, that is great chesed, but that's the aspect of ayin. The closer you are to recognizing the truth about yourself, that really, I'm garnished, I'm nothing, right? I am a creation of Hashem, you're a creation of Hashem, and there's no difference in that respect. I'm not more of a creation of God than you are. I'm not more of a creation of God than this homeless person. Okay? So the more you're in touch with your nothingness, the closer you are to that beginning of creation, to the awareness that Hashem is the creator.
But there's a difference between nothingness and worthlessness.
Correct. Well,
You can't feel that you're a worthless human being.
Right. No, worthless
No
is already a
self-image.
value. Is a
Right.
value statement, right? That's something else.
Right.
So, but what's being illustrated over here is like this: is that. So what gives us the so I went off on a tangent, I admit, okay? But so going back to what the last thing that we read over here is that God put the beginnings back, God put the beginning into creation. Now there's Bereishit is not telling you when God created the world, right? But rather God created the world with the energy of constantly starting again. That's what's happening. Now, you heard of a microsecond? Have you heard of a picosecond? Picosecond is, I think, 1/trillionth of a second. Okay? There's a pasuk that says, "Elef shonim be'enecho ki yom esmo," that 1,000 years in God's eyes is just like yesterday. Okay? So when I remember when I was a kid, so our Rebbe told us a joke. that somebody was davening to God, please help me, and God said, yeah, of course I'm going to help you, just wait a second. Now, how long is 1 second? Okay, so Elef Shonim Beinecha K'Yom Esmael, right? So it's all relative, okay? So leave the joke aside now. The thing is like this. We have technology today that can divide up a second into 1 trillion parts. I mean, mathematically, it's been known for a long time, but okay. But if, for example, when you Google something on your computer and it comes back and says, "Here's 1.5 million references to whatever you asked for," right? Did you ever look and see how long it took it? It tells you how long it took.
Sometimes half a second
Or less.
or less.
Okay? Now, half a second. You know what? The companies that support the whole system, they charge their clients by the microseconds. You pay for how many microseconds you used. Now talk about wasting time. Imagine Hashem is going to say, do you know how many microseconds you wasted? Okay. Now what I really want to get at is this. So you divide a second into 1 million parts. Divide it into 10 million parts, okay? What's between each part of that second? What's in between 1 second and another second? What's between 1 millionth of a second and the other millionth of a second? What's in between them?
Smaller parts.
And what's between those?
It's small. There's no end.
And what's between?
So
But what's between it all?
picosecond.
The picosecond is a good one, but in the picoseconds, what's between 1 picosecond and another picosecond? I'm going to say that's ayin.
Nothing.
That's the nothingness. You understand? There's. You understand? You want to see where is nothingness, right? Nothingness is in between everything that you see, and even within everything you see, also. I'm just saying, okay. Now, so where like where did after 1 picosecond, how come there's another one, and how come there's another one, and how come there's another one, right? Because it's that energy of creation that Hashem is making it happen, right? And that is an aspect of the Ein Sof, of the Ayin. So there's a story that in a certain town in Europe, the Jewish community had to move the cemetery because the city decided that they were going to make a highway through that place. So they had no choice. It wasn't a particularly Jewish-friendly, community to begin with. Anyway, they started to dig up the graves and move the graves, and they come across this old grave, and they see it's an old grave. The body is like fresh, not decomposed, and obvious, which means that obviously this person was a tzaddik. But the surprising thing is that he was buried in priest's robes. He was dressed like a galach.
Oh,
Remember the story?
no.
So they went around to find out who, what, when, where. They finally found one old woman in the town from the Jewish community, and she remembered the story. She says this Yid was the Gabbai Tzedakah. He was the one who would go around every day and he would collect the money for the poor, and then he would distribute it to the poor. Now, it happened one day that he inherited this from his father. His father, before him, used to do that. So like after Shacharis, he would go around in the town, and he'd collect from everybody. And they calculated, and there were a certain number of poor people, and everybody, like at 10 o'clock in the morning, they would come to his house and he'd give everybody their portion. So one day it happened, he finished collecting the money for tzedakah, and then he distributed it. And he's sitting down, he's already an older man, and he wants to have a cup of tea with a little bit of breakfast, and there's a knock on the door, and there's this poor person with nothing. You got to help me, I'm in desperate trouble. And he says, why didn't you come earlier? So he says, whatever my excuse is, the fact is that right now I'm in big trouble, I need money. So he says, but I already distributed everything. So he says, well, I need your help. So he put on his coat and he went around and collected a second time. Comes back and brings the guy the money, sits down, wants to rest a little bit. There's another knock on the door. Another terrible story, another desperate story. And what did he do? Put on his coat and went around and started to go collecting. But it wasn't a rich town like you can go to these people and have them give them tzedakah 2-3 times a day. Okay? So then he's walking by this Jews place in the market, and this particular Yid was sort of already more than half out of the community. He wasn't participating in community matters and so on. He never participated in the tzedakah.